All right, Rabosai. Good evening, a good Erev Shabbos, almost a good Chodesh. Rabosai, what I wanted to be able to, in Meretz Hashem, do this evening a little bit is something just a little bit different. You know, whereas normally we've been going ahead and learning the Chalban, kind of to put ourselves a little bit into the frame of reference, the mindset for the Churban, for the 9 days, to focus a little bit on the beauty of the Beis HaMikdash. You know, there's a Lubavitcher Rebbe quotes a beautiful minhag that during the 9 days one should learn Hilchos Beis HaBechira. One should learn the halachas of the Beis HaMikdash. Because again, you know, one of the things that we struggle with so much is we're mourning for something, but we don't really know what it is that we're mourning for. And of course, at the end of the day, we go ahead and, you know, we mourn for so much of the collective tsar of Klal Yisrael over the last 2,000 years. But all of it has its roots in the Beis HaMikdash. So what I want to try to do tonight is not really in a sad or morose way, but in a different way, to focus a little bit on what was so special about the Beis HaMikdash. What was it that was so unique? What was it that was... And because if we understand what was so special, what was so unique, then ultimately we'll understand what it is that we're missing. And if we understand what it is that we're missing, then maybe we'll be able to connect just a little bit with the profundity of these days. So I'm quoting to you from a beautiful sefer called Mesilas Ba'ara Chassidus, which is it's like a likut. It's a compilation of many different svarim, many different rebbes, and I wanted to share with you this piece. He writes over here, actually, and I feel a special connection to this piece because I have the chus to learn this piece in Yerushalayim. So any Torah you learn in Yerushalayim, you're kona it in a different way. So look what he writes over here. He says as follows. He says, "Bibo'enu lasok be'inyan ha'avelos ala churban habayis." It's marked as page 104. If anyone needs, there should be more sheets. There should be.
I thought it was a shurban.
It's good. It's good to hug Torah. Yeah, no, it's beautiful. 100%. So, lasok be'inyan.
Picture this one. We could have it all.
Yeah. Okay. As I said. Gosh. It's terrible. It's terrible. All right.
He just deleted. He spliced that in.
Yeah, it's okay. We're good. So the Mechaber writes this. He says, "B'voinu lasok be'inyan ha'avelos al churban habayis v'atzepir legula asida, shum alinu lahaktim b'milin zi'irim es asher hayalanu b'zman shebeis hamikdash hayakayim." So before we get into the heaviness of Tisha B'Av, the heaviness of the 9 days, it's important for us to think about what did we have. We'll say, you ask a Jew, you stop a Yid on the street, and you say, tell me, what was so special about the Beis HaMikdash? The truth is, a lot of times we don't know. I don't know. It was beautiful. It was aesthetically beautiful. It was fantastic. It was the address for Klal Yisrael. It had the Aron, it had this. But what was the uniqueness in terms of the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael? What is it that we're missing? Yigdal hatzar v'tar behatuga ala chalal hagadol v'achisarna otzum shenishava ayidei avdan v'chorban beis mikdashim v'tifartenu. You could only mourn for something if you understand what it represents. Right? If it doesn't, so I'll tell you this on a different level. Sometimes when people lose a loved one, a person loses a relative, so it's always painful to lose a loved one, but something interesting happens, which is you lose the loved one, and only after you lose the loved one do you realize who they really were, who this person really was. And then there's an interesting pain that comes about because I realize I didn't appreciate that person while they were alive in the full fashion, for the full person that they were. I only now appreciate who they were, what they were, and now they're gone. I can no longer relate that. I can no longer express that. I can no longer express my akar self. So I'll say, so part of this is, the Mechaber says, we have to learn what a Beis HaMikdash meant in order for us to feel any sense of loss. Look what he writes. Allah Aleph, section 1, V'shachanti b'schazor. So we're going to do it again. It's actually a short piece. It's only 2 sides of this page, but you'll see. I found it to be transformative, and I think you will find it as well. So let's listen to this. He quotes a beautiful medrash. B'parshas Truma ne'amar v'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'socham. And so this is the pasuk where HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands us to build the Mishkan. Make for me a mikdash, and I'll dwell within you. U'pershach hazab medrash. So we'll say, listen to this. Listen to the beautiful medrash. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. Atem soni va'ani ro'eh. Asu dir l'ro'eh sheyavo v'yira eschem. So ultimately, again, so what happens? Hashem says to Klal Yisrael, you're the sheep and I'm the shepherd. Make a deer. I will say, what's a deer? What's a deer? A deer is a corral or a pen, right? A pen, right? A corral. So make a corral, make a pen, so that ultimately, again, the sheep have a place to be. Sheep have a place to be. So the Gemara said, "Lechach ne'emar va'asuli mikdash shachanti b'socham." So we'll say, so what do you see over here? So ultimately, again, this is reserved for on-time seating over here. You just you come to you get the kisi covered over here. You come. It's great to see him. Great to see him. So ultimately, again, so right, the first part of the Medrash says, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm the shepherd, you're the sheep. The sheep need a corral, they need a pen, and the Beis HaMikdash is the pen. Next part of the Medrash, Atem kerem va'ani shomer, you're the vineyard, and I'm the watchman. Asu sukkah l'shomer sheishmar eschem. The shomer, the watchman, needs a sukkah, he needs a hut to stay in while he's going ahead and watching the field. So again, then the Medrash says, ultimately again, va'asli mikdash shachanti b'socham. What's the Beis HaMikdash? The Beis HaMikdash is the hut for the watchman. Third part of the Medrash, atem banim va'ani abichem. You're my sons, I'm your father. Kavod lebanim kishein eitzel aviyim v'kavod la'av kishu eitzel banav. Asu bayis la'av sheyavo v'yishra eitzel banav. So ultimately, again, a family needs a home to be in. Family needs a home to be in. Va'asuli mikdash. Asuli Mikdash. Shabbos said beautiful three-pronged medrash. So the Mechaber writes, the end of page 104 over here. Hare shetachlis binyan mishkan haisa kadesh yimtzach Kadosh Baruch Hu dira petachtonim shiyuchal lishkon bein banav lashkiach al tzanomi karov v'lishmar al karmo achavi va'al v'leoser. We'll say, so says the Mechaber, what's the common denominator here? What was the point of the Beis HaMikdash? The point of the Beis HaMikdash was to give HaKadosh Baruch Hu in three different iterations: shepherd, watchman, father, to give him a place to be next to his children, to give him a place to be next to his sheep, to give him a place to be next to his vineyard, to give him a place to be next to his children. I will say, I'll point out to you, it struck me with this medrash. What's fascinating about this medrash? If you notice, by the way, the three parts of the medrash all refer to different things. Let's go through this in just a moment. The first part of the medrash, right? What's the imagery? Hashem is the shepherd, Klal Yisrael is the sheep. What's the Beis HaMikdash? Right? The pen. Right? Who is the pen for? The sheep. Right? It's for the Medrash says it's for the roeh, but it's for the roeh to keep the sheep corralled. Right? At the end of the day, the deer isn't right. The pen is there for the benefit. I want to say differently. Who lives in the pen? Who lives in the pen? Sheep. The sheep. Okay. Part 2 of the Medrash, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm the watchman, you're the vineyard. Right? Make for the watchman a hut. So who, right? The hut is reference to the Beis HaMikdash. Who is the hut for? Right? The watchman. Shabbos says, so you see something interesting. In the first part of the Medrash seems to indicate who is the Beis HaMikdash for? Who is it primarily for? The sheep, Klal Yisrael. Second part of the Medrash, who is the Beis HaMikdash for? Primarily for? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Comes the third part of the Beis HaMikdash, third part of the Medrash. Hashem, the Father, says to Klal Yisrael, his children, build for us a home. Va'asuli Mikdash. Who is the Beis HaMikdash for? Who is it for? For everyone. See, Rabosai, what the Gemara say? Is my time up? Is that it? We're done? We're done. Let's call it a wrap. Okay. So there's a vibrate thing on the side. I have to get this out before Rosh Chodesh Av. Yeah, I'm just getting it all out over here. So I'll tell you something interesting. By the way, what you see over here is that there's a fascinating, almost like tension in the Medrash. Who is the Beis HaMikdash for? Who is it for? So in the first part of the Medrash, the Beis HaMikdash is for Klal Yisrael, it's for the sheep. Second part of the Medrash, no. The Beis HaMikdash is for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's for the watchman. Va'asuli Mikdash. Right? Make for me. And what does the third part of the Medrash essentially say? Who is it for? Who is it for? It's for everyone. Which is Nekuda number 1. Who does a Beis HaMikdash benefit? And the answer is, it benefits the father and it benefits the children. It benefits the Ribono Shel Olam and it benefits HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It benefits all of us together, which is incredibly important because, therefore, if it benefits all of us, then the absence of it impacts who? Impacts the Father, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the children. The Kan Nishalas HaShe'ela. We'll say, here we go, page 105. The Kan Nishalas HaShe'ela. And we'll say, here's the question. We'll say, I just tell you, just that medrash by itself is just so striking. Okay, but let's see. Kan Nishalas HaShe'ela. Hari HaKadosh Baruch Hu Molo Kol Haaretz Kivodo Les Asar Panoi Minei. So we'll say, the Ribbon Shalom is everywhere. And there is no part of the world that is absent, so to speak, or from which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is absent. Uma'aminim anu be'emunah shalema shechiyus HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzvah b'chol hanivraim domeim someach chai medaber v'hi ha'ma'amida u'mekayemes osam u'mibal adeha safu tamu v'lo hayu miskayim afilu regel kimemrav. So both say, bottom line is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everywhere and is in everything. There is nothing in this world in which the Ribono Shel Olam is not present. Remember again, we saw this in the Chalban. This is why the Chalban was saying the notion of what? The notion of Kodesh and Chol, right, is a little bit of a misnomer, right? Why, according to the Chalban, why? Because it's all Kodesh. Because Kodesh Baruch Hu is everywhere. It's all Kodesh. So therefore, he says to the Chaburah, if that's the case, Ve'im came, Bama nishtana hashras hashchina b'mikdash memetzias hashchina hakdosha b'chol nivra b'chol zman. So I want to point out over here, this here is the thing that bothers us most. Think about this for just a moment. I believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everywhere and in everything. Right? There is no space in the universe. Let's forget about the universe. There is no space in my world. Let's focus on our world. There is no space in my world in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is absent. I will say this is the famous verse of the Katzker. The Katzker says, where is the Ribono Shel Olam? What does the Katzker answer? Wherever you let him in. Right? Wherever you let him in. At the end of the day, less asa panoi minei. Asar panoi minei. There is no space that doesn't have HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I just want to tell you something. That concept fuels the nitzchius of Klal Yisrael. Right, they both say, when Moshe Rabbeinu, right, when Klal Yisrael comes in, when they're Me'ever Liyardin already, so Chumash Devarim, the Torah says they go ahead and they write the Torah Be'er Heitev. Rashi says, what's Be'er Heitev? Shivim Lashon, 70 languages. Frek Rabbi Yitzchak Miber Ditchav, Zechusa Yagin Aleinu. Says, why does Jew only needs, how many languages does the Jew need? Right? Yiddish, Hebrew, right? English, right? You don't even have to speak a full English, right? I'm sorry?
Farsi, what is that?
Good. Right? so again, Lamaisa, why do you need 70 languages? Why? And the Rebbe says something absolutely amazing. The Rebbe says, because Chadosh Baruch Hu is telling L'chai Yisrael in a very nuanced way, you're not going to live your lives in Eretz Yisrael. You're going to find yourself spread all over the world. Unless you think that your Ruchnios is tethered to Eretz Yisrael, we're going to write the Torah in 70 languages to show you that wherever you go, you could find HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Wherever you go, you could have Ruchnios. Wherever you go, you could have Torah. That's why we're here today. So therefore the Mechaber says, I don't understand. If literally the Ribono Shel Olam is anywhere and everywhere, so what's special about a Beis HaMikdash? Right? I'll say, what's special? So I'll take something. So what's the reflexive answer?
That's like a concentrated location.
Oh, good. Concentrated. That's what we normally think. Like, it's true. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everywhere, but there was a greater intensity of Shechina, a gilush, a revelation of Shechina in the Beis HaMikdash, which, by the way, makes a lot of sense. Because again, the constant miracles in the Mikdash, and in fact, again, this is part of the greatness of Eretz Yisrael in general, right? That part of the beauty of Eretz Yisrael is Kadosh Baruch Hu is in every land, in every place, but Eretz Yisrael has a greater concentration of the Shechina. But look what the Mechaber says. Rabbi said this is incredible. He says, let's skip a little bit. Actually, let's skip a little bit. You see where I have the asterisk there? Lemayin bechina zu zachi so mishkan beis hamikdash bahem zachu liros es hashchina beisgalya yoser mi b'shar makomos shebahem elokus musteres v'chavuya besoch levushim v'astaros. So what Rabbi is saying is the first answer. Is the Ribono Shel Olam everywhere? Is he everywhere? Absolutely. But I will say, the truth is, how does HaKadosh Baruch Hu appear in the Welt, right? How does he appear in the world? Be'iskasya. He's right, he's veiled. He's veiled. Whatever you want to call that veil. You want to call that veil the klippas, right? The nitzutz has the klipa. Whatever it is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everywhere. But the truth is, if you go out into the world, can you immediately see the Yad Hashem, the hand of God in day-to-day life? And the answer is no. In other words, if you look for it, you look hard for it, you can. If you have a predisposition to understanding everything is Yashem, you can see it, but just stam. That will say contrast that with the Beis HaMikdash. So what happened in the Beis HaMikdash? Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, last parak of Pirkei Avos, Asara nisim na'asu lavos in the Beis HaMikdash. There were 10 constant miracles in the Beis HaMikdash. Everything from the Eish, the fire coming down into the Mizbeach, to the fact that there was never a zvuv, never a fly in the Beis HaTabachim, right in the slaughterhouse. 10 different miracles, right? The Mishnah goes through them one by one. We'll say the idea over here is the lechem aponim, right? Lechem aponim. Kisidura or kisiluko kach siduro. It was fresh when you put it on, it was fresh when you took it off. So on the most basic level, you know what the greatness of the Beis HaMikdash was? The ability to see the Shechina unveiled. The ability to see in chassidus, this is called Shechina be'esgalia. Revealed Shechina. Revealed Shechina. And I will say, can you imagine that? Can you imagine living a life of Shechina be'esgalia? Not I have to look for Hashem. Not I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with me, but sometimes I don't see Him, sometimes I don't feel Him. And I will say, by the way, I just want to point out to you, when David HaMelech says, Keli lama azavtani, Ribono Shel Olam, why have you left me? When David HaMelech says that in the depths of his suffering, David HaMelech also lived without a Beis HaMikdash. So when you live without a Beis HaMikdash, you live in a time of Shechina be'iskasya. You live in a time of veiled Shechina, veiled HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have a Beis HaMikdash, Shechina be'esgalia. The Shechina is revealed. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily that Shechina is revealed everywhere, but Lamaisa, at least there's an address. Right? I always say, so 3 times a year, you'd go to a place. I'm just saying, can you... I know, like, we all know, when you go to Eretz Yisrael today, right? It's so interesting. I often find in Eretz Yisrael, as I get older, different things, right? Like, different things kind of ignite your neshama, right? It's an interesting thing how like your relationship with the land evolves. I remember when I was a young man, so one of the things I used to always love is like to just spend the day seeing these new communities. And when I say communities, I mean like 5 guys living on a hilltop, with no rent. To me, like I always found like the most inspirational thing. For almost, I remember again a couple of years ago, we were in Hebron. And Simcha Achpan, everybody knows Simcha Achpan, he said, do you want to see real Mesiras Nefesh? Like we were in Hebron. Do you want to see real Mesiras? I said, yes, of course. This wasn't enough for me. I'd really like to see some genuine Mesiras Nefesh. He took us to a community called Ma'on. Nechem, you ever go to Ma'on? Yeah. Right? So Ma'on, I don't know, at least when we were there, they had maybe 10, 12 families. A beautiful log cabin shul. I asked one of the guys there, actually the guy who I met there, he was a specialty butcher. I think that's like specialty cuts of meat. He was from Texas. His wife was from Brooklyn. Right? Just incredible. I said, I'm sorry? I didn't get his card. I said, I'm just curious, what's the nusach of the shul? I said, I'm just curious, the nusach of the shul. He said, the nusach of the shul is whoever gets to the Amid first makes the nusach of the shul. Right? Right? But I'm saying, but it was like by design, by design. And I say it's an incredible thing. They're out in the middle of nowhere. There's no fence. There's no security fence. Right? At least there wasn't a security fence. They are in a great. It's a beautiful neighborhood, but it is a dangerous neighborhood that they are in, surrounded by all kinds of Arab towns. And I always say, like, it used to as like to me, I'm always overwhelmed by genuine Mesiras Nefesh. Because I think the truth is many of us wouldn't really have Mesiras Nefesh. We have financial Mesiras Nefesh, right? It's expensive to be a frum Jew. But if you think about like, what am I moser nefesh in my Yiddishkeit? Right? What am I moser nefesh in my Yiddishkeit? It's pretty easy, to be honest. Like, there's not. So to me, that always used to take me. But I'll tell you what's interesting. So lately, what I've come to find more presently is that, and I had just this past trip, the ability to go to the kosel and to say karbanos. Karbanos are my favorite part of davening. I love karbanos. I don't know why. I mean, I must have been a Kohen in the past Gilgal, right? But I love to say karbanos. It's literally my favorite part of davening. So to be able to go to the kosel and say karbanos, and say Pitim HaKtoras, say Parshas HaTamid, say Parshas HaKiyar, just there. And you could feel it. You could feel it just like all that's waiting is just on the other side of that wall. So soon, all of these things that I'm saying out of the Siddur is going to come alive in such a dramatic fashion. Now let's say that, so the Mechaber goes on, he says, so on a most basic level, that's Shechina Be'iskalyo. That's Shechina ultimately, again, in a revealed fashion. So again, right now, we'll get to see that. We'll get to see that in such a dramatic way. But he goes on, he says, Rabbi, listen to this. You see that paragraph, Mashal HaShaber HaSa'ozen, right after the asterisk? Mashal HaShaber HaSa'ozen. I'll give you a mashal, says the Mechaber, that's gonna go ahead. Literally, it breaks the ear. What does he mean? Breaks the ear. In other words, I'll give you an overwhelming mashal. What's the overwhelming mashal? L'melech basar v'adam. Let's get ready for this. Al kama v'kama medinos. Shafa also b'fnei b'nei hamedinos b'nei beiso. Chaluka l'dargo shonos l'fnei zman hasibos. Tahainu. So listen to this. There's a king. There's like every good marshal. There's a king. The king has a kingdom, many different countries, many different people, and ultimately, the way the king interacts with his constituents depends on what's happening. He says, for example, Bios hamelech b'nachas b'hashkeit b'bitcha v'chol artzos malchus b'shalom ein satan ve'in pegara as hamelech sameach im avadav v'lo v'ish begadim noim. When it's a time of peace and tranquility in the kingdom, and all is good, right? Everything is good, everything. So what happens? The king wears his nice clothing. He wears his nice royal robes. Again, highlighting the idea that Baruch Hashem, life is good. Umizdayim b'minei tachshitin v'lo v'shei bigdei adei. Ulupamim, Hamelech yesh lo tzar milchamos mikam tzarin v'shodedinu bozes in arzo shaban lahashchis malchuso. So we'll say, but sometimes there's war. And what does the king wear when there's war? As Hamelech lo beish begadim achirim shiryonos v'kovim maginim charbos v'kashtos. So we'll say, so what does the king wear in a time of war? He wears his armor. He carries his sword. Again, in time of peace, the king's wearing his beautiful, beautiful monarchical robes. Times of war, he's wearing his armor, weapons. And again, in the time of war, of course, everyone's tense. Right? The king's tense, everyone's tense. We'll say, look at the last paragraph on page 105. This is going to blow your mind. So we'll say, so often we think for the king, like there's these two states. There's peace and there's war. There's another state. Sometimes the king is in his palace, and what? No one else is there except the king and his family. There's no advisors, there's no representatives. No one is there except the king and his advisors. His brothers, his sons, his wife, those who are closest to him. I will say, what does the king do in those moments when he's just with his loved ones? The Az Hamelech Master Me Alav Kitsas Hamabushim Shahayalobish Ba'od Shahayu Shirya Va'avadav Imo. So I will say, Vinishra Hamelech Iminebeso V'kulan Ro'onoso. I will say, what does the king wear when he's just with his family? What does the king wear? So the Mechaber here passes, he says, you know what? The truth is, he's not wearing his armor, because at the end of the day, it's not wartime. But he also doesn't have to wear his monarchical robes. Why not? Because at the end of the day, he's with his family and his loved ones. So he goes, I don't know, business casual, right, monarch casual, whatever that is. In other words, he dresses just with his, he doesn't need all of the trappings of Malchus when he's just with his loved ones. Vitsuraso yoser migula mimashaisim rov hamabushim. And of course, you know what happens when the king gets casual? The real personality of the king comes out. You see, when the king gets casual, he doesn't have to be the monarch. He could just be the husband, the father, the brother. When he's dressed down, when he's casual and just with his loved ones, his personal side is able to come out. The kama in yanim hu osa. Turn the page. Yanim hu osa imayim. The mistater b'fneihem kimo shayim miskasa b'mabushav b'fnei ha'amon. And ultimately again, and he's ve'eno mistater b'fneihem. In other words, he doesn't have to withhold a little bit. You see, I will say, the interesting part, and again, this is why the mashal works well with a melech also. A king has to uphold a certain station. And for example, we know what's the halacha? Melech shamachol al kivodo. If a king chooses to forego the honor due to him, what's the halacha? He can't do it. A king is not allowed to forego. So a king has to hold himself in a certain way. And even with his closest confidants, and even with his most beloved constituents, he's got to be the king. The only time the king doesn't have to be the king is when he's surrounded by his immediate family. When he's with his wife, his children, his siblings, then he could just be Chaim Yankel, right? Then he could just be whoever he is. He could just be. He doesn't have to be the position. He doesn't have to be the monarch. He could just be who he is. Why is this? Because in general, his immediate family, they're like an extension of him. He doesn't have to put on the face in front of them. He doesn't have to put on all the monarchical trappings. All the pamim, hamelech nisyachin mikol b'nei habayis, v'lo nishar imo mikol anshe besukim hamalka levad. And we'll say sometimes, no one else is with him except who? Except his queen. And what happens when he's with his queen? Va'asu poshet malbushim nosafim, o miskala lemalka yosem isha anshe beso. And when he's just alone with his queen, then he could really be the real him. See, you hear the mashal? So when the king is in a peacetime, monarchical robes. Wartime, his armor. But the idea is when he's in public and he's the king, there is always a position. There's always layers, physical layers of clothing, physical layers on top of his persona. He's with his loved ones. He could peel away all of that stuff and just be him. He's with his wife. He could peel away everything. And his true personalistic identity could come out. I will say, get ready for this. Hanimshal bazeh, page 106, second paragraph. What's the nimshal? He says, listen how beautiful. Kisha Hashem yisbarach misra'eh b'fnei ha'umos, hu kedimyon hamelech omer fnei asar fnei kol ha'avadav, shu omed melubash levushei malchus or levushei melchama. But when HaKadosh Baruch Hu appears in front of the nations of the world, so the Ribbon Shalom is the monarch, right? He's the melech ha'kol ha'aretz. And when he often appears to the nations of the world again, he's either one of two states. If it's a wartime, he's wearing kiviyachal, his armor, right? And ultimately, again, if it's peacetime, he's wearing his monarchical robes. Ve'eno nira lefneihem zulasi b'mabusha v'tachsisov, ulefichach ein Hashem nira klal la'ovdei kochavim, lefi sherov ha'kinuyun b'mabusha mechasin oso u'ma'alimin oso mehem. So this is actually a very profound yesod. See, saying over here, the truth is, often, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu's relationship with the nations of the world is such that they only perceive him as the monarch, so often, there are so many monarchical layers that they don't even come to a full appreciation of who HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually is. But watch this. Ukisha Hashem Yisparach Omed im Kal Yisrael, Harehu Omed imohem kemelech im b'nei beso. I will say this is beautiful. The relationship that Hashem has with us, with Klal Yisrael, is the relationship that a king has with his immediate family. Even though we spoke about that Hashem is our king and we're his subjects, he's the shepherd, we're the flock, right? He's the watchman, we're the vineyard. At the end of the day, the relationship that the Ribono Shel Olam has with us, Klal Yisrael, is we are the immediate family. We are the children. We are the siblings. We're the spouse of the Ribono Shel Olam. What does the king do with his family, his immediate family? Umasir mimenu kitzas halavush, kimoshe derech hamelech lahaser kitzas mabushav biyoso omet im b'nei beso. So I will say, so what happens? What does the king do when he's with his immediate family? What does he do? What does he do? He takes off the monarchical robes. And what does he wear? What does he wear? His business casual, right? His regular clothing, maybe the clothing that he used to wear on the Chalamite trip, right? The clothing that he used to wear before he became the king. Right before he was just a regular guy, so to speak. He gets casual with his loved ones. I will say, listen to this. V'zeu sod, shalosh pamim bashana, yeira'eh kol zechorcha es pnei Hashem elokecha. I will say what the pasuk says 3 times a year: Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. Yeira'eh kol zechorcha es pnei Hashem elokecha. And I will say the lashon of yeira'eh is interesting. What does yeira'eh mean? How do you translate that? Right, you will be seen. Yeira'eh kol zechorcha. Every male will be seen before the face of Hashem. And the Gemara dashes we have this in Chagiga, not so long ago in Daf Yomi. From Chachamenu Zal, Keshem shuba liros, kachuba leiraos. The same way that a person comes to see, so he is seen. So he is seen. What does it mean about say? Amnam adai ein iskalas b'shleimos, lefish adainu levash ktsas hamabushim akinuyin. Aval kesha Hashem yisparach misyachid im tzadikim v'chasidim avos olam v'yisanim asu masim kol akinu v'niskav Hashem levado. So we'll say this is absolutely incredible. The same way, keshem shehu ba liros, kach ba leiraos. We'll say what? Do you want to know what the godless of the Beis HaMikdash was? We'll say, I'll give you just a crude mashal with it. The Beis HaMikdash is like the living room. It's like the living room in the family home. What happens in the living room of the family home? Right? All kinds of stuff happen living in the family home, right? But this one's laying down on the couch, and this one's in their shorts, and this one's this, and this one's that. So we'll say, the living room of the family home is where the world is on the outside, and I could just be me with my loved ones. Right? Outside in the world, I have this identity, this position, this, I have to be this, I have to behave like this, I have to conduct myself like this. Then when I'm in my home and I'm just with my loved ones, I could just be the real me. Says the Mechaber something absolutely amazing. By the way, this is the Yismach Moshe that he's quoting from over here. Satmar Rav. So he's quoting over here the idea, Yismach Moshe is doing so beautifully, that what's the idea? We'll say, what's a Beis HaMikdash? A Beis HaMikdash is the place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I just want to be in my living room with my family. I don't want to be the king with the armor, and I don't want to be the king with all of the monarchical robes. I want to take all of that off, and I just want to be with you in my essence, without all of the additional layers, without all the additional trappings. I just want the real me to be with the real you. Kishem shehuba liros, kachuba leiraos. The same way, ultimately, again, that I come to see is the same way that I'm. Just like I come, when I come to Beis HaMikdash, I come as the basic me, as the regular me, as just the unadulterated me. That's how Kodesh Baruch Hu is perceived by us in the Beis HaMikdash as well.
Years ago I learned the Gemara book. The Rambam goes through why does the Torah spend so much time on the clothes of the Kahana? And he says it's because it's a majestic place. There has to be an aura. And one of the things that having grown up in a shtibel, people came dressed to the shtibel. And my mother once, when I wanted to go a little casual, told me that her father, who was a Belzer chassid, sent her brother home from coming to the Belzer shtibel because he wore a fedora. Because the only thing you could wear there was a Yiddish hittel or a streimel. And most people couldn't afford a streimel, right. So they wore the Yiddish hittel. In a place which is kodesh, and that's why the Beis HaMikdash has all sorts of rules. You have to. It's not casual.
No. So let me be clear. When we're talking about the casual piece over here, we're not talking about in behaviors or in dress. That's not. He's talking about as an experience of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What is? How do I experience the Ribono Shel Olam? So the truth is, in the world, the way I experience HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, again, there are different models. There's the God of war. There's the God of peace. Right? There's these different Ribono Shel Olams, and I experience HaKadosh Baruch Hu in different ways at different times. What he's just pointing out over here is the experience of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Beis HaMikdash is one of a father together with his closest family. It's just one of father together with his closest mishpacha. Right? Come in. Right? And at the end of the day, all of the barriers are broken down. So again, I can't be casual in my dress or in my behavior. But at the end of the day, my ability to experience HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a Ribono Shel Olam with all of the trappings coming down, and I get to experience just the core Ribono Shel Olam, the true Ribono Shel Olam. Look at the last paragraph.
Who's the Malka in this case?
I'm sorry?
Who's the Malka then?
The Malka would be Klal Yisrael also. The Malka would be Klal Yisrael. It would be the whole. It's the whole mishpacha. It's the whole mishpacha. I don't know, maybe the Malka is the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Look at the last paragraph. We'll finish with this. He says, "His galus zu hivricha saklipos v'kochos hatumel tehom neshia mebli shiyuchla hazik leharas shal trufam hem shuk yisem b'sever kava yashar biosila al masenu v'ashchina haisa shor ben akruvim hayu mekava ma'ara b'chol yom v'hayu yisrom nikram am kadosh v'Hashem v'hayu krovim el hashchina v'el hakedusha." Here the kava yashar says, and I will say, what happened in the Beis HaMikdash? What happened in the Beis HaMikdash was Klal Yisrael was krovim el hashchina. What does it mean krovim? How do we translate krovim el hashchina? How do you translate that? Close. The truth is, Rabbi says, it's a little bit of a play on words. What's krovim el hashchina? You're related to the Shechina. I'm a relative of the Shechina. I'm a karav. I'm b'nei Beisa. And I will say, I saw this piece, I was so taken because the truth is, I will say, do you know, that's what it means to have a Beis HaMikdash. To have a Beis HaMikdash means to have a place where a person could have a truly intimate relationship with Hashem, where all of the facades come down. My facades come down. The Ribono Shel Olam's facades come down. Right? He's not wearing his armor. He's not wearing his monarchical robes. He's just HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just plain Ribono Shel Olam. Now, of course, to make that work, I have to go ahead and drop my facades also. Right? At the end of the day, we all walk around with facades, right? Some of us wear a mask just on Purim, other of us wear a mask the entire year. So, Lemaise, again, it only works if I drop my facades, but that's the godless of the Beis HaMikdash. It's just a place where you could just be with your mishpacha. But here's the greatness of it. And this goes back to the first Medrash. Because remember, again, we had a conflict in the Medrash. What was the problem with the Medrash? Three-pronged Medrash, right? What was the problem with it? Who is the Beis HaMikdash for? Who is the Beis HaMikdash for? In part 1, shepherd and the sheep, the Beis HaMikdash, the sheep, Klal Yisrael. Part 2, watchman, vineyard. So Beis HaMikdash is for the watchman, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Part 3, what's part 3? The Mishpacha. That's about to say what ultimately the Yismach Moshe is going off of. You know what the Beis HaMikdash is? Like Lahavdil. It's the living room. It's just the place where you could just create a simple, pure, unadulterated relationship with Hashem. And I will say, but it works both ways. It's the place where I can let my guard down and be me with my God. And although it sounds strange, it's the place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu could lose all of the layers and just be Kiviyachol himself with us. And I will say, now you think about, Nechami, I'm sorry, go ahead, what were you going to say?
Two things that I'm a little bit unclear about. If that was the case, then it's supposed to be that, then the Beis HaMikdash was maybe, I don't know what the right word is, the height of ornateness. Spectacular, it was beautiful. You don't feel that way as comfortable when you walk into a place that's like, wow,
right,
overwhelming. And wouldn't also, the second point that I was thinking about was, wouldn't also there be a come down? Whereas if you feel like if this is the place where Hashem is everywhere, and you come into a place and this is where the Shekhinah rests, this is where it is, so wouldn't there be, what would the feeling be when you leave that place? And you go into your house where Shekhinah, it's like you don't feel the same.
It's the same.
How can it be the same way? So wouldn't there naturally be like, okay, I'm supposed to think Hashem is everywhere, but yeah, well, Hashem really is over there. So when I'm really there, I feel him. But when I'm not there, not so much.
Right. So I both excellent points. I'll tell you for the first part, I think that's what Rosh Hashanah was saying also. There obviously has to be this balance. Because when you are lifnei Hashem, there is a certain level of regality that is necessary, a certain level of elegance, a certain level of mora. So as much as the Yismach Moshe is trying to highlight over here, a certain level of comfort, of course, that's, I would say, that's more like the pnimi, experiential level. But the chitzonius have to reflect that this is the Beis Hashem. Because otherwise, if it just becomes a living room, right? Can you imagine the Azar is just a bunch of couches and ping pong tables, right? Right, it's going to relax, we'll just chill over here. And it's a disaster. It's a disaster. So the external klape chutz, it has to be a palace. It has to be a palace. But klape pnim, I think that's the kavayasher, and these are describing klape pnim. What's my avoda here? And my avoda is just to be with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Ribbon Shalom's avoda, kiviyachol, is just to be with me. Not the God of war, not the God of judgment, not the God of mercy, not the God of this, not the God of that. Just God. Just HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In terms of the second part, it's a great kasha, but that's always a kasha. In other words, yeah, you forget, before we learn this, you make aliyah l'regel, right? You go aliyah l'regel. You come back. Incredible. Klal Yisrael is here. We're eating karbanas, simchas beis ha'shoeva, fantastic. Yant is over, you go home. You don't think like there was what's the word?
Letdown.
Yeah, like a real letdown after that. Of course, like, Nehemiah, how do you feel when you come back from Eretz Yisrael? Right? Like literally, like somebody tore the neshama out of my body. It's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be that way. Because the truth is, our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not a flat line. It's a series of peaks and valleys. And that's how Ruchnius is supposed to be. But the goal is, that's the whole chap of going to the Mikdash. The whole chap of the Mikdash is, it gives you what you need until the next regel. And then you go back, you get what you need till the next regel. But of course, you go back, you go home, right after Isru Chag, you pack your bags, you go home, you get home, you open the door, you go to whatever, to your local shul, and you're all revved up and great, and Shacharis is over, and you don't feel... That's Ruchnius. That's Ruchnius. I don't think that's unique to this. I think that's built into our system of Ruchnius, a series of peaks and valleys. And I will say, but I'll stop over here for tonight. But I just hope that, like, to me, I found this piece just so riveting because I will say, this is what we're missing. This is what we're missing. We're not missing shiurim, because we have plenty of shiurim, right? We're not missing, if you think about it, right? I'm not missing Torah, I'm not missing chesed, I'm not missing tzedakah, we have, Klal Yisrael has all that stuff. Do you know what I'm missing at the end of the day? Just a pure, simple, living room couch, kiviyachol relationship with Hashem. That's what I don't have. That's, I'm sorry?
Shmini Atzeres.
Shmini Atzeres, right? It's true. That is the Shmini Atzeres. Absolutely. But I'm seeing but that was the Beis Hamikdash. That Beis Hamikdash was the place where if you just wanted pure, unadulterated Hashem, just, in other words, the Ribbon Shalom without the robes, so to speak, right? And me without all of my layers. So I could shed my layers. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sheds his layers, kiviyachol. And I just get to connect with the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what we lack in the Beis Hamikdash. And I will say, I think that this is so important for us, because I will say, I think, like, we've spoken about this a number of times. Like, if you look at what is the challenge of our dar? We speak about this often, right? What is the challenge of our dar? If I were to ask you, what's the challenge of our generation? What would you say? What's the challenge?
To have the next door.
I'm sorry?
To have the next door.
To have the next door. Good. That's always right. The inherent challenge. Correct. Say what's our nisayon?
Connection?
I'm sorry? Apathy. It's apathy. Apathy through and through. There's always been a level of apathy. Again, I'm not a historian. It feels like apathy is systemic. It feels like it's systemic. You walk into the halls of schools, and by the way, schools all over, right? Apathy. Blank faces. By the way, apathy about everything. about everything. It's not just like apathy, like kids don't like learning Gemara. Kids have never liked learning Gemara. I have yet to meet a kid who actually began their learning, getting to like Gemara. Or maybe they liked it in the beginning, then they usually have a period of turn-off, maybe they get back there. Fine. Just apathy. Not angry at God, not rebellious. Fundamentally apathetic. Apathetic. We'll say, do you know what apathy is a result of? You know what it's a result of? So again, of course, the go-to thing to blame for every single problem is, right, the internet, right? That's always safe, right? The internet. It's always, again, technology certainly contributes to things, there's no question. I will say, apathy is when there is no relationship with Hashem. When there's just no relationship, there's just nothing there. So I'm a good kid, I just don't care about this because there's no relationship here. I like my friends, I have a relationship with them. Hopefully I like my parents, I have a relationship with them. Right? I like things in life. I'm not a bad person. But this means nothing to me. This Yiddishkeit, this whole thing, it means nothing to me. Because I don't have a relationship with my father. Because I don't have a relationship with the Ribono Shalom. I don't have it. I'm not saying I don't want it. I'm not saying maybe it might be nice, but I don't have it. And because I don't have it, therefore everything else is simply meaningless. You see, we often mistake apathy for like at-risk behavior or apathy for some... It's not, I mean, sometimes it might be, but Lamaisa, apathy sometimes is just as simple as, if I don't have a relationship, I don't care. It doesn't mean anything to me. And I was saying, you begin to see a lack of relationship, and I think, this is what I think. I think that the intensity of apathy as driven by a lack of relationship becomes more and more intense as we get closer to Bayis Shlishi. Because you saw this already again in the Chalban. We saw it already in the Chalban. That the closer you get to Geula, the more dominant and powerful the forces of Golus become. That's the way it works. It's not an accident that in a generation where there's so much prosperity, there's so much Talmud Torah, there are so many incredible things working for us on so many levels, yet there's such rampant apathy. And by the way, it's not just kids, plenty of adults also. Such rampant apathy. We're on the cusp of Geula. And what we need more than anything is a Beis HaMikdash, because the truth is, I don't need Karbanos. I don't even know, I think Karbanos is going to be interesting for many of us to navigate, right? How exactly that's going to play out, right? Schlepping, right? Most of us get a little bit strung out packing up the family in the car. Can you imagine packing up the family and 14 sheep? You know, that's going to be, right? That's going to be interesting. Let's say, it's not the Karbanos that we need, okay? Karbanos will be wonderful. It's not the miracles that we need. What I need is just that pure relationship with Hashem. That's what my life is missing. That's what my life... I have so much Torah, Baruch Hashem, so many mitzvahs, everything is going great. Good. Do I have a close personal relationship with the Ribono Shalom? That's the Beis HaMikdash. And I was saying, to be clear, with this will conclude, we shouldn't construe this to mean that in the absence of the Beis HaMikdash, you can't have that relationship. I can. It's just much harder. But I will say, I mentioned this a couple of times, as I get older, I become, I don't know if it's a function of getting older, that my mind doesn't work the way it used to, or maybe I'm just becoming a simpler person. But I've come to find that sometimes, like, the greatest ruchni achievement is not in a Reb Chaim, or it's not in some lamdas, it's in the ability just to feel close to Hashem. That's in davening, what I ask for more than anything, va'ani kirvas elokim li tov, just to be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I just want to feel that we're together. I'll shed my layers, you shed your layers, and let's just be together. But I will say that lack of togetherness, that lack of just simple connection, is what we lost with the Chorban. So I will say, as we go into Rosh Chodesh Av, and I wish everybody a good Chodesh already, even though again it's Mishenichnas Av Mema'atin B'Simcha, famous part of the Baal Shem Tov. Right, the Rebbe says, everybody translates it as Mishenichnas Av, we diminish our Simcha. The Rebbe says, no, that's not what it means. It means Mishenichnas Av Mema'atin. When Av comes, you have to diminish things. But even when you diminish, how does a Jew diminish? Besimcha. Besimcha. Chas, you never diminish simcha, chas shalom. You have to diminish certain things. But when you diminish those things, you do it besimcha. He'll say, it's a long way off the Tisha B'Av. Long way off the Tisha B'Av. And maybe, now I know what I'm missing. I have to tell you, when I learned this piece last Shabbos, for the first time in my life, I actually felt that I understood what I'm missing in a Beis HaMikdash. I'm going to be honest, I never understood, do I want a Beis HaMikdash? I know I'm supposed to say I want a Beis HaMikdash, right? Does my life feel incomplete without a Beis HaMikdash? Until I saw this piece, the answer was, not really. I'd love it. It'd be incredible. Right? But now I get it. Because what I need most in life, I don't really have. Because what I need most in life is really found in the confines of the Beis HaMikdash. But maybe, first of all, if we yearn for it and we want it, and we also work a little bit over the course of the next 9 days, to be able to, Amir Hashem, try to find a little bit of that personal kesher with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just by talking to Hashem, taking time for his bodidus, his boninus, taking time to just speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, saying, Ribono Shalom, the truth is, I do a lot of mitzvahs, I learn a lot of Torah, but the truth is, I don't feel close to you, or as close to you as I would. Help me. Help bring me closer to you. You could ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to help bring you closer. You could ask him, say, I want to be close. I want to feel like we're sitting together. We're sitting together and just we don't have to talk. You know what I'm saying? You know what the best part, right? The best part of being with someone who you love, what's the best part? Best part? You don't have to talk, right? I often tell, when I speak to sometimes to couples when they're dating and they're not sure, are we ready? I said, a good litmus test is, when you start dating, you have to talk. I said, are you at a point now where you could just sit with each other and you're content? And if the answer to that is yes, that's great. Because being with someone you love means I don't have to make talk. I don't have to make small talk. I'm just happy just being. Ribono Shalom, we don't need to talk. I just want to know that you're next to me on the couch. I just want to know that I'm next to you. And if we could work on that and daven for that and do whatever's within our power to affect that level of relationship and ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bring us closer. Maybe in that zuchus, we will be zoch Amir Hashem to take these 9 days, to use them as fuel for the Geula, and halabai we should be zocha. That Amir Hashem, already we have something working for us this year. What's working for us? And it's a great thing working for us, which is Tisha B'Av is a nidcha, right? Which is incredible. Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos, which means that already we don't have a real Tisha B'Av this year. And that, by the way, is a siman gedola. We don't have a real Tisha B'Av this year, right? This year we're going to have Suda Mafsekes on Shabbos. It's not Suda Mafsekes. It's going to be Shalosh Shudas. What does the halacha say? What does the Gemara says? The Shulchan Aruch codifies it that when you eat Suda Mafsekes on Shabbos and Tisha B'Av, what kind of Suda do you have? Kishlomo HaMelech b'shaito. You could have a su'uda of Solomonic proportions, right? You want to have carving stations, sushi stations, right? Whatever you want to have your friends over, your neighbors over. You could do whatever you want to both say. There's something special in the air when Klal Yisrael doesn't get to observe Tisha B'Av the 9th of Av. Kadosh Baruch Hu is telling us something. My children, this year you're not going to have a regular Tisha B'Av. It's going to be on the 10th. And I both say when it's a nidcha, all kinds of kulas. I'm already getting, it's amazing by the way. People become like geonim, tzadikim, poskim. When Tisha B'Av is a nidcha, I heard that there's this, and I heard that there's this. It's incredible. A lot of love is going on. I'll say, but there's something to it. So I'm just saying this is a different kind of year. It's a different kind of year. There's no real Tisha B'Av this year. And if there's no real Tisha B'Av this year, then that means that maybe this is the year that we can turn things around. Let's use the days ahead. First of all, now we understand what it is that we lost. Now that we understood it, we could yearn for it. We could ask for it. We could begin to try to create it in our lives. And that's chos. Maybe Zoch Amir Hashem. To take a Tisha B'Av that is already nidcha and to be madcha it even more. To push it away even more. And Amir Hashem, not just push it to the next day, but Amir Hashem fundamentally transform it from a day of mourning, a day of sadness, a day of heartbreak, to a day of joy, of jubilation, and of Geula b'mihira Rabbi Yameinu. Amen.